Oh, cool.
All right, guys, let's not wait anymore to kick this off. This webinar is brought to you, sponsored by Coaching Hub. See behind me our little sign. And we have our Coaching Hub team here, but they have their own brands. And, I'll introduce them here to you guys so you know who you're dealing with. But before we even kick it off, I just want to talk about how the webinar is going to go. These guys are going to present to you and about 20 minutes or so worth of content. And this webinar is really designed for questions. We want to allow you to bring in live questions, and really there's no stupid question here because chances are if you have it, somebody else has that question as well. So feel free to fire away. And these guys are very experienced. They worked with a lot of different people and hiring manager and a recruiter. And, Chris is a lot more depth and recruiter in the industry and knows a lot. And Linda's, a career coach as well as a hiring manager. So these guys are pretty deep. But I just want to tell you about them first before we jump in. And we'll go from there. So Linda Tilson proudly serves as the Chief Operating Officer for Coaching Hub. She brings over 12 years of managerial experience leading professional accountants for the state of Washington Workers' Compensation Program. Linda specializes in creating operational excellence by challenging people in an organization to become effective problem solvers using lean tools and methodology. Linda is passionate about empowering people in their personal and professional setting and believes in creating a living legacy. Some of her achievements include hosting LinkedIn local events in Western Washington, serving as a mock interview panel facilitator for an effective interviewing class, presenting appreciative inquiry and networking from a place of giving at EmpowerLink 1.0 in Chicago, sharing her inspirational journey message for IS3 LLC, and serving as an active contributor to Mentor You Global. Linda is best known for coming up with incredible and actionable insights as a coach. That is game changing. She has a way of seeing opportunities that are often hiding in plain sight and finds creative ways to help people leverage them. As a confidence coach, Linda believes that all things begin and end with how you choose to show up. When you feel confident in who you are and what you have to offer, the world pays attention. She coaches people using a 4-pillar system based on confidence in self and others, appreciative inquiry, process management, and accountability. She guides her clients through a 5-step conversational process where the end goal is for each of them to reach sustainability in their lives by the time their season together draws to a close. And then we got Chris. When Chris had a desire to make a career change, he took a successful sales process, stripped it down, and used it to position himself within the information governance community. Soon, he found himself receiving requests from large enterprise organizations to streamline their internal processes and help drive results. In late 2015, Chris's project on Wall Street was cut short. He was unemployed with no opportunities in sight. Things got so bad that he, his wife, and their children were left without a home of their own and forced to start from scratch. Times were dark. Chris took odd jobs to help support his family until they could build back up again. Realizing he had skills that were in high demand and no clear path to getting in a job, he put his process to work for himself in his job search. Within a few weeks, Chris focused his search on the staffing industry and began a new career as an IT recruiter. It was here that he found his passion for helping others move forward in their lives. In just 3 short years, he received his career coaching certification, opened a thriving career coaching practice, and was invited to join the Forbes Coaching Council. Now, Chris coaches professionals in all verticals using his proven process to accomplish their goals. I marry a combination of military training, project management methodology, and recruiting best practices to create a purposely designed framework I call the CDLC, Coaching Development Lifecycle, the first of its kind, that will keep you moving forward to achieve what you set out to. It's all about purpose, focus, and moving forward. Without further ado, guys, I'm going to let these guys kick it off and just present to you. Just remember, put your questions in the chat, and anything that comes up, throw it in there, and we'll go order by order, piece by piece, when they start answering these questions. So feel free at any point to jump in. All right, guys, kick it off.
Thank you so much, Anton. Linda, I'm going to defer ladies first. I'm sure there's a lot of people here that have been going through the job search and they're submitting their profiles to online job boards and not necessarily getting results. So I would really love for you to be able to tell people when they do submit their profile and their resume through the ATS system or even through the online Indeed or job boards or things like that, as a hiring manager, what necessarily do you look for that'll really stand out and show the value add for that professional for your organization?
Absolutely. One thing I can say that in state government, in my particular agency, we have the human aspect where we actually personally read every single application, every single letter, every single resume. And so the thing that I want to see as a hiring manager is I want to see the human aspect. I want you to be able to read through our job announcement, and I really want you to not just feedback the announcement into your cover letter or feedback the skills in your resume. I want you to be able to tell me who you are, what role you've played, what things you've done, and the results that you've gotten. And so that, to me, someone that can do that they're going to get my attention. They're going to get that energy.
That's quite compelling too, because you mentioned something that really is a great takeaway. And even on the agency side of recruiting, when I'm sourcing for, let's say, a client that's looking for a project manager, during the requirements gathering session, they're giving me a myriad and a list of all these keywords of exactly what they want, but it's more robotic than anything else. So I really like that you brought in the human element to it, because a lot of people kind of forget that. They're so focused on matching the keywords to their resume and showing what their responsibilities are that they don't necessarily project that human element. And one of the key processes within the CDLC that Anton had mentioned is to have a connection with people. And that's purposefully designed, and why we called this the 10X your job search. And it wasn't just to add on to the moniker of 10X. It's because you need to have some type of connections. And I recommend that you reach out to 10 professionals within your space or hiring managers like yourself. So that way you exponentially grow that network and give yourself more of an opportunity to present those skills, not necessarily in a robotic sense, but in a humanistic point of view as well. So I love that you brought out the human piece of it. Is there anything that you look for within a cover letter? You know, I know that we design, even on the recruiting side, you know, I tell a lot of my candidates, write a cover letter that's designed in 3 specific paragraphs. The first paragraph is going to be what your intro is, thanking them very much and giving any type of accolades for the position. And then the second is going to be where you fit into that particular role. If you've performed that role before, highlight all of your specific skills and what your achievements are, not necessarily your responsibilities. A lot of times, the people that are applying for these jobs, you see the resumes and they list out the bullet points in responsibility form, not necessarily going to position you in the right light. You want to highlight those successes and those accolades that you have and what you bring to the table there. And then in the third paragraph of the cover letter, you always want to mention your ask. So thank you very, very much for considering me for this opportunity. I would really like to move forward. Can you give me a date and time or your best availability that we can talk forward? And the reason you say that is because you're implying you're already, and Anton knows this from many, many years of sales, you're assuming the sale. You're assuming the close. You're letting the hiring manager know that your search has stopped here. And in your closing paragraph, you're saying, I'd love to get on a chat. Where can we go from here? So as a hiring manager, I'd love to get your take on what you're looking for out of those 3 paragraphs in a cover letter from a candidate that's seeking a job within your organization.
Yes, absolutely. I'm actually looking for specific examples and not generalities, because I want to know how you stand out and why I should hire you from somebody else. You know, what is it that you're going to bring that's unique? What is it that's going to bring something special to what I'm looking for in a way that I can see it? So the people that are most successful tell the stories in a way that's inviting. And so one of the best things that I had seen in an applicant before was one where they were just starting out. They didn't have a lot of experience, but they were able to tell me that what they lacked, that if I took a risk on them, they would be willing to show me those things. And that sentence was what got them into the interview. And so when they came into the interview, I asked them some more questions around that. So the more that they can put some things into my mind of why I should invite them in, that's what they should be doing, is putting that hook out there. And generalities are great, but I assume when I call everybody in for the interview that they already meet all of those competencies. And so I've got to know that people element. How are you going to fit on my team? How are you going to interact with everybody else? And what are you going to do when problems arise? I want to know if there's a problem, are you going to hide under your desk? Are you going to get out there and you're going to go out there and have some crucial conversations You're going to ask some more questions, and you're going to be that problem solver that comes out and saves the day. That's what I want to know.
That's perfectly said too, because, you know, when you're saying that, I'm thinking about that PAR methodology. And I know that Linda and I have had this conversation multiple times about what's called a PAR methodology within your resume, or now it's called the STAR method. But the same foundation applies. If you're building out your resume, and we'll get to in a minute what these phases are for your 10X of your job search, but the core foundation of your job search, and I'm sure Linda will agree with me, is your resume. It's basically your written billboard of all your accomplishments. So a lot of people fall into the trap of, like I said before, you're writing out your responsibilities in every one of your jobs, and you're missing what you did. And the PAR methodology is problem, action, resolution. Any hiring manager like Linda or even myself, when I'm recruiting you and I'm looking for you, I want to see what your title was, how your career progression was, but within the bullet points of your resume, I want to see what problem that company hired you for, what the action that you took to resolve that problem, and then what was the resolution. So let's say for a sales role or business development, you expanded on a territory 25% over year. That's your resolution. That's how you brought your A game to that company, and that's why their search stops here. So, you know, I probably should have said it at the beginning, but one of the whole platforms that I live on is when I get on a coaching call with someone or even a discovery call, I'm listening to their voice and I'm listening to how they present themselves. And, you know, we always hear about framing the moment. And that framing the moment is going to lead out to everything that you possibly do on your resume. So you've got to frame it properly, that you're the expert in that space. And like I said, I should have alluded to this in the beginning, but I want you guys to not have any fear in your job search. The job search can be tremendously fun because of all the different people that you meet, all the different networking connections that will bring you to that next level in your job search. I know sometimes that we get to the point like I did, where we were down and out, bills need to be paid, you got to get things going, you're in 20 weeks of your unemployment, you got 6 weeks left. So I know that can go a little bit crazy, but you need to own that confidence. You need to realize that whatever time frame that you've had, whether it's 5, 10, 15 years of experience, own that and take that as your confidence marker, because that's what's going to bring you. I know that's your realm, Linda, is the confidence coaching, but you need to bring that before you even start a whole process of job searching. You got to realize who you are and why these companies want you. That's first and foremost, because if you're not owning that, you're not feeling that, the way you're going to write your resume, the way you're going to present yourself is going to fall apart. It's not going to be able to present you in the best light possible. So that, I should have said that in the beginning, but it all starts from there. So that was a great point, Linda, you know, especially what you're looking for the human side. And right now, even the story side of things. And, you know, we see some of our fellow coaches like Lindsay Mustaine or Kerry Twigg or Matt Gagnon or some great friends that have become, for all of us, tell the same thing. Tell your story. Let people know what you've done in your past, why you're the champion at what you do. And then you can better forward your progression in your career search. So great point. Great point.
And there's one thing that I would like to add.
Yeah.
Chris. And so one of the things that I get asked quite often is, what do I do when I have a gap in my history or I've taken some time off? And I've told people that the best thing they can do is to bring it out to their cover letter and address it and explain that, for example, you were a college student, you just graduated, you took a contracting position. The contract, you went out, you performed what you needed to, the contract ended, and now you're left looking for a job. Well, go ahead and say that you graduated with your degree and that you went into this company and these are all the results that you brought, and that now the contract has ended, you've got all this experience that you're going to bring to a company that's looking for that full-time person to bring on board as an employee. And if you can do that, for someone like me that's looking at your application as far as your resume and your cover letter, you want to do that, because the biggest thing you don't want to do is not to say something, because in some instances, people will even look at short-term tenures as the person didn't stick it out, because the era that I come from, you would join a company and you would stay with for 2 years. The first year you're learning the job, second year you refine it, and then that third year you decide if you're going to continue on that path or if you're going to look for something else. And so I see a lot of people that only stay around for 6 months, and I honestly, I'm on panels where that's looked upon or frowned upon, that they don't stick it out. And the cost that you put into hiring those individuals for the salary, the benefits, the time in the training, it's huge. And so it's really hard to convince those people on the panel that we should hire someone that hasn't worked 2 to 5 years for a particular company. So do address in your cover letter and your resume those gaps and explain what it is that you did during that time.
Yeah, I would agree with that 1,000%. You know, I always tell people to lead with their weaknesses, because there's a little bit of humility involved in that. And just human to human, we kind of react to that in a nurturing way. You know, we all want the best for one another at our essence. So when you attack your weaknesses, or you say, yes, I did have a 3-year gap, I was taking care of family, or I was furthering my training and wanted to focus on exactly the core elements of my training, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop putting someone in for a submission and let them know that, no, you're not good because you've got a 3-year gap. Absolutely not. That doesn't mean that they don't have talent or they can't do the job. Attack that gap and say, yes, I did have a gap, and here's what I did during that gap that shows these transferable skills. And that's a key word that we always talk about, transferable skills on how we do this. So I really think that that's a major, major point for anybody who was recently laid off or has maybe a year gap because they were raising children or they were on FMLA, whatever the case may be. Own that gap. There's nothing wrong with that. You can still further along a business and build a business or cost savings for a business just as good as anybody else, just because you had a gap. You know, I have a colleague of mine that has been out of the workforce for 14 years, no job history for 14 years. We hired her on the spot, and we're lucky for it because she basically runs 2 territories, 2 offices, and does it better than anybody I've ever met in my life, working with project managers on Wall Street and even in Manhattan, right in the core of things. She's unbelievable. 14 years, never working. So that, yeah, those gaps, attack those gaps. Now, I know that I saw that John's here. John, thank you very much for coming on board. And I want to attack something that John has, because John's got a lot of solutions background, and he's got a lot of technical knowledge, and he's got a lot of development skills within relationships. And I know that John has championed so many people and built so many teams within his history that he's looking for the next great thing. But I can also tell you that, and John will allude to this himself, that he's very picky. He wants to know exactly what teams he's going to be working with, what their talents are, and what their work ethic is going to be. So I want to kind of attack that with John. And John, sorry for calling you out on that one, but just, I mean, really, man, you've been one of the greatest guys I've ever known. So I want to attack that in your job search, that when you're looking for that right company, or you're looking for that next solution, and you're being a little bit picky on choosing the company, what I would say to you is don't fear that. You know, just keep to those core values, write it down, jot it down, exactly what you're looking for, create your own job description. Start with that, because I can guarantee that there's a myriad of different job descriptions that fit the bill and what exactly you're looking for. It's just a matter of matching those descriptions or those keywords and finding those companies that are looking for those skill sets and looking for the people that are sometimes perfectionists. And it's okay to be a perfectionist. So I would just say, John, keep going, man, because you're doing a great job and you're definitely a champion in your field.
And so, Chris, can you walk us through your 4-step process that we can share with our audience? Because I really, when I heard it, you can apply it to just about anything. And that's what I really liked when we were having our discussion and bringing up the things that we thought that people wanted to hear more about. And so can you do that?
I thought you'd never asked. No, that's great. It's actually a 3-phase project, and it works over about 6 weeks. It's basically, like Anton had mentioned, it's either the coaching development life cycle or the career development life cycle, depending on what search you're in. It's a 3-phase process that comes out of what I learned in the military and just that accountability aspect of it. What I've learned in project management methodology, whether it be waterfall or agile methodology, didn't matter because it's still the same concept, just how fast-paced you work within it. And then also the staffing pieces of things, that the best practices that I've learned since I've been in here. Now, I'm not by any means a master at this, but I can honestly say that I've never lost an interview. And it's only because I'm ridiculously hyper-focused and, almost to the point where I'm sure my wife is going to divorce me at any moment because she's like, okay, can we go off script any moment now? But I mean, the CDLC is based off of job search, and it kind of lives within there. So there's 3 phases, as I said. And the first phase is kind of self-assessment. And that's kind of understanding what you are, who you are, what skill sets that you have, and where you want to go. What's your target? In the military, Anton can kind of allude to this, is, you're not gonna fire at a ship that you don't know where it's at and just blindly fire and just see, maybe it'll hit. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's not necessarily a good practice because so many branches come off of this practice, especially once you get into different phases of it, that all these opportunities start to come into play. If you don't have a direct target and understanding of what you want to be and what you want to achieve, you may get a little bit lost along the path, and you may have to start from the beginning. So when I say that, the self-assessment part, let's say you've been a sales consultant, or let's go with a project coordinator, right? Someone that really wants to be in project management. They want to be a director or a program manager, but they're starting off as a project coordinator and they love those elements. So define exactly what you want out of your career. We define our career as 25 years, right? Collect your watch, go play golf, have fun. That's 25 years, so define exactly what you want. So if your goal is a director of program management, you're coming up this hierarchy, that's your goal. Define that, target it, put it in your sights, staple it all over your head, whatever you need to do, and then work towards that career path. So self-assessment is phase 1. We normally work within maybe a week and a half with a lot of my clients that we understand. Because sometimes when people put you on the spot and say, what do you want to be when you grow up? Even in your 50s, what do you want to be when you grow up? People go, it's like a deer in headlights look. What? I don't know. So, but once you have that identification and that goal, everything falls into place so much easier. And you would be surprised and go, this is it? This is really how it works? And it really becomes that much easier. So after about that week and a half, we go into the preparation phase. And that preparation phase lasts 2 to 3 weeks. And what we do is we want to design your digital billboard, because it is 2019, and we've got so many different ways to be able to market yourself as the product or service that you deliver. Poland Spring, this was their goal. They wanted to put out this bottle of water and sell it to everybody and their mother. But they had an idea and they shot for it. So the preparation for their marketing is the same type of concept that we use in the preparation phase of your job search. So when I talk about that, and when we go through that about the 2 weeks and a half, we're talking about your career builder profile, your LinkedIn profile, your resume, your cover letter. I hope you guys taking notes. Your cover letter, your recommendations, your references, and anything else. If you're $100,000 salary earner and above, you want to make sure that you've got a profile on the ladders, because that's really where those people are getting those jobs. It showed about 35% from last year of people gaining $100,000 in a year jobs over and over from year to year. So that's where you want to prepare that. The one piece of this in the preparation phase is to keep your messaging clear and concise. So if you've got a photo like Career Builder and Indeed, you can put a photo up there, as well as ZipRecruiter. Take the same headshot, put it across the board so people get sick of you, because then they start to know exactly who you are. That's your face. You're the person who's the subject matter expert in that space, and you're going to be cohesive, and your messaging and your branding is going to be clear across the board. Anything that's on your resume and on your digital profile and all those job boards, make sure it tells the same story. So we want to prepare for that and kind of image it around a process where, like let's say a sales funnel, right? So we want to put that on LinkedIn and Career Builder. We want to put just enough information that it's going to lead to where the person's going to want to see your resume. Then we put a little bit more information, and that's where your PAR methodology comes in, and they want to now bring you into an interview. Then that's where you really drive it home, and that's where you land the job that you want. So the process, I know it sounds so simple, and you're going, that can't be it. It really is. It really, really is. Just make sure that everybody knows who you are, what you do, and have your digital profiles complete across the board and brand yourself like we've heard till we're almost sick in it. The third phase is nothing more than implementation. So everything that you prepared for, that's when we really get into the meat and potatoes of it, and you're going to start networking with people. And that's where 10X came from, because every day, you want to reach out to 10 professionals that would be your hiring managers or people that are within your purview of skill set. And you want to just give them a templated open or a connection request, finding a commonality. Now, if you do that 10 every single day of the jobs that you want, when you're applying on one side through the job board, and now you're reaching out to the hiring manager, which is very simplistic. You just look up the company, comma, space, HR. That's it. It'll give you an entire list of names. Connect with those people, identify the commonalities, and just start a conversation. Don't lead with an ask. Don't say, hey, I need a job. Can you help me out or anything? Just say, hey, I went to Baylor too. Awesome teams. I have so many memories there. I would just love to connect with like-minded people. Leave it at that. That's all it really is. So if you got 10 a day, that's 50 per week. We've got a 6-week program. That's 300 connections and 300 hiring managers that are going to look at you for the next job that you're going for. So now you've connected with 300 people. Can you honestly tell me that out of 300 people, everyone's going to say, no, we're not hiring you? Almost an impossibility, right? I mean, your presentation is key, and just accountability in doing this process time and time again to where it becomes second nature is so simple. And that's why I kind of, in a lot of ways, I give it out to people and say, look, this is what you do. And here's the templates that you want to set up for your introductions and then your follow-ups. And people look at me. Even some of the coaches I mentioned before, they call me up and they're like, Chris, you're killing me. Your prices are so low, and you're just, because it's bigger than me. This is people that have families. And I found this process by happenstance because my kids were looking at me and say, Dad, where are we sleeping? That's horrible. So I said, you know what? I got to put something together. I put this process together, and knock on wood, luckily it has never failed me. And like I said, no college education. I was overseas. I was in the Persian Gulf, and I got a job on Wall Street. I was making $235,000 a year. And it was fantastic. We had a $700 million project. They told me to hire my team, all by using this methodology and this process enhancement. So like I said, it's very simplistic. It's only 3 phases, and it will guarantee you results, some type of results.
And Chris, one thing that I would like to mention is, because we're in a digital world, having that template where you have your resume, your cover letter, your different specifications of what you achieved, when you're in a networking event, isn't it great, instead of handing out your business card, you can say that if a person's interested, that you can immediately send them an email showing them what you've done and how you've done it. So that way, when they maybe want to talk to somebody else about your skill set, they want to connect you to another person, they have something that they can forward on. And so there isn't that back and forth. You're ready. It shows that you have initiative, that you are ready to go. And what can you tell me about that experience and how you've used that?
That's a perfect example to it. I'm sorry for missing that, but that's a key point. Whether you're on Android or iOS and you're an Apple guy or a Windows guy, whatever, no matter what you use, when you purchase that device, you've automatically got at least 5 gigs of free space. So if you have your resume, cover letter, reference sheet, recommendations, and introductory format, or even your skills format resume, when you have that up in the cloud, that's going to take you maybe 12 megabytes of space. It's free. You don't pay for it at all. But now, if I'm meeting you at a networking event, Linda, and we're talking, and you say, I'd really like to see your resume. What are you going to think if I say, hey, what's your email? And I fire off all my documentation while we're sitting there talking, and you've got everything there possibly is to know about me. what would you think of me? Would you think this guy's ready to play? Or would you
Yes.
think, oh, great.
I would definitely think you're ready to play and that you're someone that I'm worth having a conversation with, following up after the event that we just talked at. Absolutely.
Yeah. That preparation is 90% of everything. Just being prepared for any situation that possibly can happen, even in a job search, so key. Make sure you have all that information right there for you. So definitely use that and use all the advantages, all the devices that we have. I mean, we really have right here. This is the same power, if not more, that launched the first shuttle to the moon. Right here. That's it. Why aren't we using it? There's an interesting stat out there that 85% of cell phone users only use 12% of its capabilities. What? This thing will run an entire, as a matter of fact, my coaching practice is all run off of this. That's it. That's what I take with me. I run the entire company off of this. It's 2019, so we should be prepared for anything we possibly can have and be available to take the bull by the horns at any given time. And that's what's going to land you your job. Not that blase blah type of look at, I'll get to it later. When you hear that mindset, when there's something in your head that says, I should, follow that. You have to follow the I shoulds because it's something in your mind saying, I got to go do it. It's going to be in my best interest. So you have to go do that. Great question. Thank you for that. I forgot.
Oh, you're welcome. Absolutely.
We got a few questions here from the attendees, if you guys are ready to field those.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're ready to do it. Let's do it.
If anybody else, while I'm reading these off and they're answering them, just feel free to fire them off and write them in the Q&A, and I can pick up your question just like I did these. And the first one is, you discussed doing this, your cover letter. What kind of mindset should we be in when we're writing this cover letter to help us project the right message?
A mindset of confidence. Definitely. You have to, like I said, you have to start the entire process by understanding that you have a lot of skills. Whether you're just coming out of college or you're just coming into, or you've been in the workforce for quite a bit, we constantly get beat down rejection letter after rejection letter, or sorry, we've moved on and moved in a different direction. The mindset that you have to be in is how you empower yourself to the world. You have to have that confidence mindset and realize that everything that you've possibly done up to this point is amazing. And don't let that fall by the wayside just because, you've gotten a few rejection letters. That's fine. That's their loss. It's not a problem. It's their loss. So have that confidence mindset.
I have to say that I absolutely agree with the whole confidence mindset, because when you're sitting down to write that cover letter, you need to be in that frame of mind, because that's how you're going to phrase those stories. That's how you're going to use those power words that resonate with somebody. And I don't mean to use the cliche-ish power words. I mean to say, I have worked in a company and I have put together these proposals to senior executives, and I tell it in a way that they want to get on board and work with me to deliver this initiative. And so having that confidence when you're doing that, it's going to do so much more than I am sending you this cover letter because I'm interested in this position. That does absolutely nothing. That's not selling yourself. And one thing that I do want to say, that if you're applying for a job internally, I see so many people miss the mark on the whole confidence and bring their story. They assume that they're going to bore me or the panel with things that I already know. But the secret is there's other people on the panel or even reviewing the applications besides me, and you want to bring everything that you've ever done and put it in a light and use some wording behind it that even if a person didn't work in that area, that they could understand. And because the biggest thing I see is people don't sell all of the great things they see or that I see that they do every day. And I'm like, where's this person? I know that they can do 10 times this. So having that confidence mindset, you sit down, whatever you have to do to put yourself in that place, do it, because that's what it's ultimately going to take to be able to land that interview, to have that backstory of why someone wants to come in or invite you in to ask you some more appreciative questions about what it is that you are going to bring into that position that you've applied.
That's a really great point, Linda. I saw that somebody just asked in the comments there that should I attach a cover letter to my resume as one doc when they don't ask for a cover letter. And there's a couple points to that. Number one, the answer to that is always, absolutely 1,000%. And why is that? Is because if you look at business landscape as a whole, let's look at the media, right? Television, people who have watched television has dropped significantly to the amount of people that are reading books nowadays. And that Kindle, Amazon, and Apple Books and all that. People are reading a lot more because they want to educate themselves and they just enjoy reading. So even if they don't ask for a cover letter, that's your opportunity to shine and intro yourself. So every single time, even if they don't ask for it, always include a cover letter. It gives more of a clear picture for you. And, one thing I want to mention on top of that is, we kind of forget as job seekers, we kind of forget that these hiring managers, they're not only looking through resumes all the time. And Linda, you can agree with me or disagree with me, but they're not just sitting looking through resumes all day long. They have other responsibilities. They're running projects, they're running initiatives, and they're running protection of the company. If they're in HR, they're protecting the company. They're working with internal employees that are there that have issues within the company. It's not that they are disrespecting you by saying, I'm not getting back to you in enough time. They have a lot to do. And so do we as recruiters on our side. We've got, as a matter of fact, we just did the numbers today, and we have one job that came in that I've got 700 resumes for this one job. And that was just this week, and I still have to go through them tomorrow too. So it's not that we're saying we're not getting time to use. So there are some people and recruiters and even hiring managers that we've heard the term ghosting. It's not on purpose. There's some great talent out there for hiring managers and recruiters that are good people, and we want to get to you. But there's 700 other people for a sales job that I'm going through right now. So I'm going as fast as I can. So, when people say, I haven't heard from my hiring manager, I haven't heard from my recruiter, follow a methodology that I use. It's the 3-7-9 methodology. After 3 days of you talking to the recruiter or the hiring manager, reach out and just say, hey, just wanted to let you know I read this article about the company. Thought I'd share it with you. By the way, is there any feedback? You don't get anything? 7 days, you want to gently touch back to that person that you're working with, the recruiter or the hiring manager, and just follow up and say, really excited. I do have some other things in the pipeline, but because I'm really excited about this position, I just wanted to reach out to you and see if there's any constructive criticism or any feedback that you can give to me. And then that 9 days, close the circle. Completely close the circle. If 9 days you're not hearing from anybody, then just say, thank you very much for your time. Do not burn bridges. You never know when you're going to need that person later on. But send a nicely worded letter that you say, thank you very much. I'm sorry it's not moving forward, but I would love to keep in touch for any other opportunities, or if anything I can help you with throws them off their guard. Why do you want to help me? I didn't even get back to you and you want to help me? That carries you so long in your career path. Do not burn bridges. So yeah, I know that was kind of long-winded, and it started from the cover letter through the whole process, but just wanted to mention that to anybody that's wondering, why are they not getting back to me? Everything's broken. It's really not. Yeah, in some ways it is, but all of us, I think, have the same goal in mind, whether it's hiring managers, candidates, or recruiters. It's the same goal in mind, and you have to think about the business as a whole.
And Chris, I'm glad that you brought that up, because as a hiring manager, sometimes there are other people in the process that we have to wait on. And so things don't always get to move as fast as we would like. And what you said about reaching out and writing a nice email about something that you've read about or something that's interested, that you might find that I might think is interesting, or if you have something that you want to share just to tell me a little bit more about you, I think that is great. I will say that depending on the environment, some people will reach back out and send a nice reply back. Other companies, they may have policies that they want you to not interact with the applicants until they move all the way through. So sometimes that can be a reason why you might not hear. I think that most people will acknowledge. A good hiring manager will at least acknowledge, even if we can't really comment on any feedback early on in the process, because we're being fair to all the people that have applied. We wait until later to be able to do that. And so you're absolutely right. Don't burn any bridges. Don't start sending emails every day. I've had people do that before too. And so take the response for what it is, and then, like you said, after that 9 days, you close it up and then see what happens. It's a two-way street. You're seeing if the hiring manager, how they're going to treat you, is how they treat you in the process is a very good indicator about how they're going to treat you in the future. And so if you've got somebody that never responds, doesn't get back to you, doesn't do what they say they're going to do, has lack of communication, chances are you may not even want to work for that company. And so you take that as a gift, that's some insider information that you learned along the way.
Yep. I see another one in the comments there talking about a 4-month gap, and how a candidate should address a 4-month gap. And first of all, if you've got a 4-month gap on your resume and someone is questioning that, you should question why they're questioning that, because a 4-month gap is a very short gap. You can explain away that in furthering your education in any manner, whether it's just listening to a lot of podcasts so you can really firm up a lot of concepts that are in your job profile. But a 4-month gap, not really a concern, especially for me, working on millions-dollar projects. A 4-month gap is not a problem to me. Doesn't really matter. When you want to say, you never want to badmouth any type of company when you're interviewing. So by mentioning to them that company wasn't ready to engage, and I wasn't waiting around for them to engage or anything, not really the best answer. I would kind of flip that to the positive mindset of being, at that point, unfortunately the project was not able to move forward for situations outside my control. But within that 4-month time frame, I really wanted to hone in and find that right opportunity that was really going to bring me to the next level, because I did get so much from that last project and it really taught me. So, that question, it was a great question, but 4 months, you should never have to worry about a 4-month gap. And, and when you engage back to that question, flip it to a positive light, because any hiring manager, no matter who they are, whether they're a recruiter or a hiring manager, never wants to hear anything negative. Everything's got to be, it's always sunny in Philadelphia. That's how it's got to be. So you never want to have any type of negative connotation to any previous job, or even if your manager was a insert beep here, but you don't want to say that to anybody. You want to always have a positive outlook, because even when they walk away from that interview, whether they're negative or not, what the hell was wrong with that? That guy was so happy. Maybe I want to work with that guy. What the hell was he so happy about? So never badmouth another company. So there's another good question in there. Linda, you want to take that one about today?
Okay, and so the next question is, should I ever say in a cover letter, ask me how I was able to make the vendors work for me when you contact me, or ask me how I saved the day for my client when we meet to discuss this opportunity? In a cover letter addressing a gap for a quick time of 4 months at a company before they lay me off, should I tell them that the company wasn't ready to engage in the new initiative? Okay. All right. And so I just saw that today they're pushing through new resumes. Okay. All right. So
love this question. I love this one.
I think you should be honest, but not too honest. And so the part where you're asking about the layoff, I think if you can maybe discuss some of the things that you did right and some of the things of maybe what surrounded that, put it again in a positive light. If for some reason you're in this place where things did not go the way that you would have handled them, and you learn later after reflecting back that you could have done something differently, take that experience and say, well, this is what I did. It wasn't effective for me during this time. What I learned was from this experience that these are the things that I could have done better. And in a new environment, a new situation, this is how I would approach it differently. Phrase it in a learning way. So you acknowledge the thing that went not right. You talk about what you would do differently if you had it to do over again, and show that you can accept that criticism. That's how I would answer something like that.
Yeah, definitely. That's key too. And I love that from a hiring manager's perspective too, because you and I we have the same ideas on what we're expecting from people in the way they were interviewing with us. And that next question that was right after that, I saw today that they're pushing new resumes with color columns on the left side with bullets to the right, and you have the resume verbiage. I love that question because I get that all the time. And without being not PC, I get that from one demographic, and then I get that from another demographic, and you can see the split between the two. And I'll leave it at that. But the resumes, when you see that really design-heavy resume, the first question I ask is, what position are you applying for? Great. Now, everybody knows that I'm a huge Apple geek. So Steve Jobs was the type of guy that everything was design-heavy. He didn't care that people were never going to see the inside of the product. It had to be perfect. So it had to be design heavy. It had to look pretty. People never saw it. So these resumes that are coming out today, when they have all these skills prospects and they have these bullet points down the side, they're really design heavy. I asked them, what job are you applying for? Graphic designer. Perfect. That's the great resume. That's my portfolio for the entertainment industry. Perfect. Best resume. Financial advisor. Not necessarily. Because think about the people that are looking at them. You know, we have progressive companies, Google, Facebook, Apple, all those companies, Amazon. And we also have the traditional companies, law firms, financial companies. Think of who's reading them. So when you've got a financial person or within a law firm or a financial company, they're not really keen to these new age resumes, and they don't know where to look for the information that they need. So they're going to be a little bit more traditional. So that's where you want to have the resume format in that traditional format. If you're looking at a progressive company and you're applying to Google or Apple, you can, but I wouldn't submit that resume as your resume profile to the ATS system. Because number one, the ATS systems are built off of such an old, antiquated platform, and some of even the programming languages that use those, it doesn't know how to recognize that resume. So for the ATS system, you want to have a text-based resume, or when you convert your resume into Word, PDF, or whatever, you'll see a .txt. Convert it to the TXT resume, submit that, because the computer will be able to read every little point of your resume and not miss it because you have a bar going across or you have bullet points that are design heavy. Now, conversely, when you go into an interview, bring that design heavy resume, because that's your profile and you want to make it a little bit more concise, because we read that way from social media. So we take little snippets of information and we identify them as what we need to look at and where we need to look at it. So as an add-on, I would say, yeah, these new age color column resumes and things like that, bring that to your interview. But when you're submitting for the first time at a job, use a more traditionally formatted resume, so that way that you can get all the information that you need to and nobody's going to miss anything because of an ATS system that's programmed a little bit more antiquated. I hope that wasn't too much of a
Are there any other questions out there today that let's see. We have another one. How far back do you go on a resume? 15 years, 20 years max? I've been around the block, and I had a Skype interview, and the interviewer laughed and asked me at the end of the interview, what did I do before my last job on my resume? It went back 20 years. I told him the same thing I've done until today. I could have gone back 35 years when I started in the industry. Okay, so I would say that in most cases, when we have a series of jobs that we've done, we typically tell people to go back 10 years. Now, somebody that's worked in the same industry for 35 years, that is great that they can go in and put that one job on there. But for anybody else, stop at the 10 years unless you want to add some part to your resume where it's the functional piece, where you did something that's out of sequence and it's relevant to the job you're applying for. Another piece of advice that I would say is that once you've been out of college for several years, you no longer need to put what year you graduated from college as well. Because you don't need to, your age is not important. What's important is what you bring to the position. And so there's a bias that can happen. And so the more that you can take some of that out and just bring in your skill set and have that be first and foremost, that's what you want to do.
That one, I have to go the opposite direction on that one. I have to say that I disagree, respectfully, of course.
Of course.
I have to disagree with that because 10 years doesn't necessarily show exactly the hierarchy. Now, in a technology-based industry, 10 years is the newer of the technologies because we move at the speed of yesterday, right? So, but I tell people a lot of times, put your experience as far back as you can go that's relevant to the job that you're applying for. If you've got 35 years of experience, that's transitional experience and skill sets that are relevant to the job that you're applying for, put it in there. I would love to say that ageism doesn't exist, but it does. But, even in my 40s now, I'm starting to see it, and I'm starting to see people go, yeah, well, what'd you do for, before that? And I'll happily tell them and say, I understand the business landscape as a whole. So that's why I'm good for this opportunity, because from every different vertical, I understand the foundational elements of business. And here's how I can build whatever your initiative that you need me to do. This is how I can do it because I bring this amount of company. Now, on that same topic, think about where you're applying too. If you've got 35 years of experience and you're worried about ageism coming to play, you might not want to apply to the Googles, the Apples, and all that because their demographic, they're going to want people that they're going to spend millions of dollars on over time, and they don't want them to have a shelf life. It's understandable. Some of us, if we were running our own business, we might feel the same way. But go for a more traditional company. Again, like maybe the finance, or even maybe if you're in graphic design and you're kind of in these new age design type of thing of job profiles, go for a Chiat Day. Chiat Day is one of the oldest design heavy companies in the world. And they look for people, and I've actually placed people with Chiat Day that are 55, 58, and 61, I think. So absolutely use that to your benefit. Don't stop it at only 10 years.
To this question, somebody asked, how do you avoid getting victimized based on age?
Oh.
How do you avoid getting victimized based on age? I would need a little bit more context on that. So when you say victimized by age, number one, if anybody's victimizing you by age, I would stand up in the interview and say, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I don't know if necessarily this is the right fit for me, and I don't want to waste your time because I know you have a lot of things to get to. But if somebody is victimizing you by your age, walk out. We're at the lowest unemployment rate possible, which means we're at the highest competition rate possible. And if they're not realizing your competition because of your age and what your skill sets bring, don't work there. Respectfully walk out. Never be victimized by your age, ever.
And that's true about anything that you may go into an interview on. If something is not right, you can be polite. You can be polite and excuse yourself from an interview. I've had people ask me, are you married? Do you have kids? All of those off-color things when I was first starting out. And so I chose to answer them because I didn't think that would matter because the industry I was entering was construction, and that's typical that they might ask you things like that. But I could have said, that's not important and I'm not going to answer that. You could go both ways on that. You have to go with what you feel is comfortable and right for you, whatever that is. And so your values matter. And if the values of the company aren't in alignment with yours and you feel that way, then you're right, Chris. You should say that you would like to be excused and that you don't want to waste anybody's time.
Anytime those terms come into play, when you hear victim, when you hear harassed, when you hear targeted, walk away. And you're doing yourself a favor. Believe me, you're doing yourself a favor. When you hear those words or those terms that come up right now, walk away. You're dodging a bullet there.
We have another question, guys. Do you ever advise candidates to go outside the box on their resume?
Outside the box on their resume. So I'm going to assume that means adding different little design elements or adding different type of cues on that. I don't know. The context has to be a little bit deeper.
Can I put a picture of myself like this?
When it comes to that, yeah, if you're going to be a podcast host for a major media organization, why not? It can't hurt. But, the photo resume is a very touchy subject because, the photo resume, it really, really tried to take hold in 2013. And it didn't work then. People were saying no, because there's some people that aren't comfortable on camera. And I'm assuming that this is what out of the box means when on your resume. It really tried to take hold. It came back a little bit. It's up to you. whether you want to do that or not, because you've got LinkedIn, right? People are going to cross-reference you on LinkedIn. They'll see your headshot there. Don't necessarily need to have it on a resume.
Some of the out-of-the-box things that I've personally seen, sometimes they can detract from what you're trying to do. So I had one person that wrote a cover letter, and they had like 3 or 4 different colors of font going through the letter. And so I thought that was a little bit off. And they did that with their resume too. So you got to be thinking about your audience and whether or not you're going for a graphic artist position, or if you're going for accounting. For accounting, it's going to be pretty conservative. And so even some of the styling and word choices you might use, you really need to be mindful of acronyms and the words that you use to the people that are going to read it. But I think you can bring some personality because I think that when you write a cover letter, that you can make it sound almost like a conversation or a story, and do it in a way that's effective and inviting. And so you just you got to keep that in mind. So I think you've got to that you're comfortable taking.
Use humility too. I mean, humility is such a valued asset, because some people get egotistical in so many ways that they go above and beyond. But when you have so many times that you can laugh at yourself and use humility, people see that as authenticity, and you're not going to be devious to them. You're not going to be malicious on the job. Laugh at yourself. Have fun with this. I mean, it doesn't have to be such a strict thing. You can have fun with your job search. And if you feel like you're being victimized, or you feel like you're not getting any success with it, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to reach out to a career coach or a professional in this space, or even a friend of yours that's a hiring manager, and say, I need a little bit of guidance. That goes a long way. It's not so stiff. It doesn't have to be. It's finding yourself. It's finding yourself another accolade, another notch in your belt. Have fun with it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, you should have fun with the process.
Next question is kind of, it's not a question, more like a statement. One element that is said to be too old school is to list hobbies.
Oh,
what are your thoughts on that?
I disagree because I think that saying some things, maybe not the word hobbies, but your special interest groups, there's things that you do that make you a person outside of work. And so on my particular resume, I talk about being a local LinkedIn host. And so that's a volunteer thing that I do because I enjoy networking with other people and putting a community forum together where we get to grow and learn. And so to me, that's great. Why wouldn't you want to put that?
I would agree, depending on relevancy.
Yes.
I mean, if I'm applying for a sales job and I put I'm a ping pong champion and I love ping pong, it's not necessarily really going to carry any value over to the company. I would definitely say that hobbies are definitely good because, number one, if you show that you're an avid runner or you do 5Ks or something like that, in our landscape today, health and wellness is such a pillar of what we do. So yeah, absolutely add that as a hobby. But I would say try to key in on the relevance. You definitely don't want to put professional dog walker when you're a VP of finance, I saw another one come in there and I can't. Oh, that's the same one. Okay.
Did you guys answer the one where they said, should I ever say in a cover letter, ask me how I was able to make the vendors work for me when you contact me? Or should they say, ask me how I saved the day for my client when we met to discuss this opportunity?
Unless you're selling ping pong balls.
That came in after when you were talking. I just threw that in. The question's been posted for a while.
Yeah, the second.
Should I ever say in a cover letter, ask me how I was able to make so you're in your cover letter, you want to ask a question to elicit a response from the hiring manager? Is that what the question is? Am I understanding that correctly? So, I mean, in a cover letter is more of a statement document. It's not necessarily a question or something to lead down a question. So, I would say to put into your cover letter all of your statement points and all of your highlights that are relevant to the job. And again, specifically the job that you're applying for. We see so many times that people are cutting and pasting cover letters that when you read into that second paragraph that I mentioned at the beginning has nothing to do with the job. So, I wouldn't put in a cover letter, ask me about how well I did in my last job. I would just state how well I did in my last job and what those key points of interest are and how my successes really drove home the relevancy to your job and how it would work for that.
And I would agree with that statement to tell the backstory of what you did and the results. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then another statement there, you want to elicit a reaction from the hiring manager. And absolutely, the reaction is specific on what you want to elicit from the hiring manager. Because when the first thing they're going to see is your cover letter, sometimes the first thing they're going to see is your resume. But the reaction that you want from the hiring manager are two things. Flip the page, go to your resume, or get on the phone and call you. Or send you an email. So those are the reactions that you really want. And it ties back into a sales funnel of what you want and what by design you want that hiring manager or that recruiter to do. And you have to kind of lead them down that path. So like I said in the beginning, all of that documentation or the supporting documentation that you deliver, and then your digital billboard and your LinkedIn profile and all your job postings for your LinkedIn or your career builders and all those, you're leading them to where the end of your sales funnel is, which is your phone number or your email. Guide them to that by whatever type of framing that you want.
We have another question, guys, and this is obviously from an extremely confident individual. Would it be a bad idea to ask to interview your potential boss?
Oh, so that's maybe out of the box thinking.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I would put it in a cover letter. That might be something that you might find out who you're going to interview with, because your next boss might be on that panel.
I wouldn't ask if it would be okay to interview the next boss, but I would interview the next boss in the interview.
Yes.
And that's on purpose, because I want to see where his head's at. Because, you can tell, and we talk about, that's a great point, and you just brought me to it, mirror matching. And I could see Anton's face in the corner there because he knows this from sales. Mirror matching is anytime you're in an interview, people love people that are like them. So if your boss is, or your potential boss is interviewing you in such a manner that's loud and boisterous, be the same way back. If he's very quiet and mundane and very bored and match that mentality. And that's mirror matching. And that goes back to the 1800s with the guys with the suitcases walking up your door with all the elixirs and everything. That's a tactic that works almost all the time. And it's funny because you'll get the same response from the hiring manager, whoever you're interviewing, and you're interviewing too. They're going to be like, something about this guy I like. I can't really put my finger on it, but there's something I like about him, because you're acting the exact same way he is. So absolutely don't tell your boss you're going to interview them or ask for the interview, but when you are in an interview them back.
That's a very good point about the mirroring and being able to read the room and being able to come in so that you're not too high energy or too low energy, that you're very similar to the people that you're meeting with. Not, of course, changing who you are, but paying attention to the energy. That's really important.
Let's field this one more question, guys, and we'll wrap it up. On a cover letter, should we really try and find out the hiring manager name, or will simply putting Dear Director of Recruiting still work?
Dear Hiring Manager, and leave it at that, unless you know specifically who the hiring manager is. And that goes back to the process. If you know that you're applying for a specific job and you know the company, you cross-reference the company on LinkedIn, space, human resources, you'll be able to identify the hiring manager just by, where it is. And that's a good point. Something I alluded to before is, if you're looking for a job, go to the next level up. Go to your boss. If you're looking for a project manager job, go to the program manager within that company. And again, cross-reference on LinkedIn. You're looking for Apple. Go Apple program manager in the area that you're looking for, and you find out it's Jim Davis, and you say in your cover letter, Dear Jim Davis, my name is Chris, and whatever the case may be, you can do it that way. But if you don't know the hiring manager and your recruiter is not giving you the all the information, for an interview prep, then Dear Hiring Manager works. And that's another point too. Is your recruiter, hold them accountable. Your recruiter should be giving you every single email that I send out. If I get an interview, I give them the company profile, name, all the LinkedIn URLs of the people that they're going to be meeting. I give them the full job description, not the one that was posted. I give them all of the company history. I give them the recent press releases. I give them everything they could possibly use. And then 2 hours before every single interview, I get on the phone with them and I do an interview prep. That's what your recruiter should be doing every single time without question, and hold your recruiters accountable, because they benefit from you getting the position. And sometimes recruiters get a little bit complacent and go, yeah, he's fine. He got an interview on Friday. Get on the phone and prep that guy. Make sure that he gets to cover for his family and he gets the job.
And on the flip side, if you don't have a recruiter, then you should be doing that same level of research.
Yes.
You should be finding out more about the company, who's at the company. If you can get a phone call with someone that works for the company, or you can go on their social media and find out more about them. When you go to that interview, if you can find out who's going to be on the panel, and you can find out more information about them, you can come in with questions that you can ask that might appeal to their senses or their interests that relate to the interview. And that will help you have that relatability. And so you can be sitting across from them, and then they're going to like, oh, that person really did their homework. They understand our problems. They understand what we need. They care about us so much that they did all this research. And that, when I hired some of my people, the people that did that, those are the people that rose to the top. The people that did their research, they could bring back the stories, or they talked to somebody else. And it wasn't like, well, what do you like best about where you work? They actually asked about some of the things that we were working on, and then they came into the interview and they were able to give those technical elements of what we were working on and press the socks off of me. So that's what you want to do.
It's called job search special ops.
Yes.
Well, guys, thanks so much for taking the time. And I just want the listeners to understand that you guys are going to have a follow-up webinar from this, and you're going to deep dive in a lot more detail on all the components you've discussed, and it'll be a little bit more presentation than Q&A. You'll be given a lot of specifics on how to actually 10x your job search. The other thing I want to add is these guys want to give away to the people that register for this webinar an opportunity for a consultation. If you guys are looking for a job, right now yourself, or you're prepping for your next step, whether it be moving up, we will put the details how to reach out to these guys, and you can set up a time for a consultation. They can let you know how they can help you.
Absolutely.
Yes, we're looking forward to doing that.
All
Guys,
right.
thank you so much. And everybody out there on the panel, and thank you so much for having me. This really was a pleasure, and I hope that everybody had some type of takeaway for their next job search.
And they will send an email with a recording, and there will be a gift for you guys. So stand by and just pay attention to what that is. They'll be limited just to the participants that were on this webinar. Thanks, everybody.